New governor giving his first major address to the entire General Assembly this week, Senator.
I thought he did well. I was pleased with almost everything that the governor was presenting to us. His comments were almost I am going to do what I said I was going to do in campaigning type speech. I mean, most of the things that he brought up, he had campaigned on. He had more detail, a little bit more in terms of fleshing out how he was going to do it or exactly what it would look like. There were some people obviously disappointed that he didn't have a budget ready, and that is going to put the Missouri House in a pretty good crunch. It's an unbelievable amount of work to put a budget together and then to move it through the Senate Appropriations Committee back to the governor. And it is going to be a real challenge this year, but I think that relationship that we'll have with this governor is significantly different enough that we'll be able to make the deadlines that are on us constitutionally. So I was pleased with the speech, felt like he hit a lot of the things that, I guess, not politically correct, but are the kind of policy changes that Missourians really want to see.
Part of the speech traditionally has been, and you mentioned this as well, is a budget speech. And there's still a couple of weeks before the governor expects to have the budget ready to go. How much of an impact do you think that makes? The deadlines for the Constitution for the legislature remain the same?
They don't move. It's fair to say there are a lot of nervous people right now on House budget committees and Senate appropriations committees because they are used to having those numbers and then being able to go to work on them immediately. There's been a lot of discussion about what can they do ahead of time, even before they have budget numbers with some of the departments and with committee structure to be ready. But it won't be easy, but the date doesn't move. We will have to get the budget done.
In terms of some of the other specifics from the speech itself, especially on regulations, that was a big part of the address from the governor touching on, and the fact that they're freezing regulations and reviewing 28,000 pages, I believe the number was.
I think that's right.
Is that a step in the right direction for you?
That is huge. That is such a challenging endeavor. The Senate has tried to do some things that way as well. We have a committee on registration that we've never had before. That's a new committee that falls into that same arena of regulation. I think there's a general sense that we really need to start bringing some of that to a reasonable place. I would probably summarize the governor's speech in most instances as focusing on liberty, whether it's liberty in terms of reviewing regulations, the restrictions, the requirements that government has put on businesses and on individuals, and trying to liberate them to some degree from those and review those and see whether they really are to the benefit of the general population, whether they benefit the people or don't, and let's get rid of them if they don't. And I'm of the opinion that many of them don't. They're the kind of regulations that empower government, empower bureaucracies, but they limit the people's freedom. He also addressed, I think, education from the perspective of liberty. He wants to see parents have options in the education of their children. I think he recognizes that every child is different, and some children simply do not fit well into the type of environment that they meet with in the public schools. They might fit into a different public school better, or they might fit into a charter better, or they might be a student who really needs to have virtual education or be educated at home. So many options that could be available that are simply either unavailable or very difficult to access in Missouri, and the governor clearly wants to address some of that. He talked about liberating workers, right to work, prevailing wage, some of these other things where liberty really brings benefit to the state because, we have evidence that passing some of those legislative pieces could bring as much as a 20 to 30% reduction in the cost of road construction. Right now, we all know we need additional road maintenance and reconstruction, and every place that we can find a dollar, we should be accessing that dollar to its maximum benefit. I think that's important. There has been a lot of discussion relative to the budget on the dire circumstances that Missourians are in with this budget, and I think a number of us in the Senate, at least, are looking at it a little differently. There's a lot of discourse frequently about making government more efficient, making it work better for the people, shrinking the size of government, although in my opinion shrinking the size really means shrinking the control, so it is a liberty issue as well. But this really is an opportunity for us in the legislature to do that because we're going to be forced to do it, and it says you can't any longer ignore the problems of misspent taxpayer dollars. You're going to have to address those. So this is a real opportunity for us to take a hard look at how the taxpayer dollars are being spent, whether their returns on those dollars are as high as they would be expected, whether we're getting the services and the other aspects of state government our constituents need and want for the lowest possible cost to the taxpayer. And there are two ways to look at this year. One is that, it's a catastrophe because we wish the state had more money. The other is this is a real opportunity that's before us to do the job that we keep saying we're going to do, but if their revenues are there, we tend to put it off.